Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Twin City Trio podcast here on YouTube. My name is Cale Fleming. Alongside me, as always, my one singular host today, Gavin Campbell. Gavin, what's going on?
Not much, man. Good to be here.
That's what I like to hear. We're doing something a little different this week or today because Tyson, our third, is in Dallas, Texas for the weekend, attending his first Cowboys game down there. So that's kind of cool. Congrats to him. He got a pretty decent birthday present from his lady there. So hopefully he's having a fun trip. But stepping in for him today is a reoccurring guest, McKendree offensive lineman Jake Stevenson. Jake, what's going on?
It's just good to be back, guys. I missed it. I won't lie.
Jake's been on the phone with us a couple times. He's been in here a couple times. Basically recruiting or breaking down the Illini recruiting for us is what he's been doing. And if he's back in here today, we're going to get into the same thing. The Illini had a pretty decent day yesterday. With their signing period, or early signing period, I believe is what it is. So I'm going to kick off the show with this. We didn't know if we were going to talk about it, but I'm going to just go ahead and throw it out there. Breaking news, the Los Angeles Dodgers are trading outfielders Matt Kemp and Yasiel Puig and pitcher Alex Wood to the Cincinnati Reds for Homer Bailey and prospects. That's big news for the Dodgers organization. That pretty much tells me that they're throwing in the towel. They don't have that much faith. You get into the World Series, I'll say, twice in 2 years, twice in 5 years, not winning a single time. The Cubs beating them in the NLCS. I don't know, if you're Tommy Lasorda, you just kind of be a little upset, making that many pushes and not being able to get the job done.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're right, but I think the thing that I took away the most from this, and I'm sure that you guys can attest to for being Chicago fans, is this is going to be an even bigger thorn in the side of teams in the NL Central.
Yeah.
Because we already know
because
Cincinnati already had their number all year for whatever reason. It was a bad team, but they were able to take down the Cubs and ultimately ended up screwing them over in the standings when it came down to it.
Yep.
And not only that, you're adding Puig to that team, and then you still have to go up against St. Louis and Pittsburgh and the rest of that division.
St. Louis just added, obviously, Paul Goldschmidt. They had a goalie from Arizona, and then yesterday they acquired Andrew Miller. As Jake stated before we started recording, I'm not that concerned about Andrew Miller because he is getting up there in age, and the Cubs have always performed really well against Miller. But I don't know. It's still Andrew Miller. He probably can still show some flashes at some points. He still has an ERA in the low twos in his career. So I can't – and his playoff ERA is even better, but not when he's playing the Cubs. I don't know. Andrew Miller, I know Jake probably doesn't feel the same way. He still makes me a little nervous throughout the year.
I mean, for me, I'm just going to dip my hat in baseball as well. I know a little bit of anything and everything. I just feel like you look at a team like the Cubs. We're sitting here pretty locked and sealed, 100-win team. We're feeling, at least a lot of people were, still looking to make another move. But that just cuts into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Now you're looking at some possible seeding issues, and then obviously looking way too far ahead with it. But I mean, if you think that the Reds can't steal a couple games out of the season by adding those guys, I think you're crazy. But at the same time, I think Cardinals, those are old guys, and they're signing with Goldie, with the trade with Goldie, that they pigeonholed themselves in a contract situation with an aging player. And I think in the long run, it might. I'll admit, first Goldie, Cub killer, no doubt about it. But an old Cub killer. I just don't think long term that it's something as we need to look at as much. But I will say, in the short term, it's looking like some wins could be stolen with this deal.
Well, and I'm glad you talked about it being a long-term situation because if this doesn't work out next year, I mean, it's only going to go downhill. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they're obviously making a run at it. I know Cale talked about this last week a little bit and the week before that. But, I mean, next year in the NL Central, just overall, man, that's going to be one hot division as soon as the season rolls around.
It's always a hot division anyway. The three of us in this room preached about it last season. I preach about it every year. It's the best division in the MLB as far as I'm concerned. But it just keeps getting better and better, and it's kind of interesting to see who's going where, But the Cubs did add Daniel Descalso. That's a pretty good pickup. We're adding some beef to the middle infield. With the Addison Russell situation, I don't quite know what's going to happen with that. So it's kind of good to see that we did add Daniel Descalso, a proven middle infielder. But real quick, too, Manny Machado took a meeting with the White Sox yesterday. He has narrowed it down to the Phillies and the White Sox, from what I understand. Bryce Harper has also taken a few meetings with the White Sox as well. It would be a big splash if they could, if the White Sox staying in Chicago could get one of them, let alone two of them, when they have a blank pocketbook like their GM has stated they have multiple times. So the White Sox could potentially make a splash here, a pretty big splash this winter. And not only that, they have all of the rookies or prospects coming up as well in their farm system. But let's get off of baseball. Let's move on to the Illini football, the real reason why Jake is here. We had a pretty strong day yesterday, I would say. Can Jake go ahead and just give us a breakdown of what happened yesterday?
And first things first, I want to point out, like I've said the last time I've been here, all my information is get online through conversations with my friends. Illinois Inquirer is a great source to have if you're an Illinois fan. Can't recommend it enough. But through Twitter and through the Inquirer, I've been able to kind of get an idea of what's going on here, and with a lot of my own research through, like I said, on the internet, I've got a good idea what's going on. And this is a class where you're going to look at it, and it's been said time and time again from a lot of experts, and that's who you need to trust. And I agree, is that like you look at the rankings and you're like, wow, I mean, the 50, 60 in the nation, like that's not what we're looking for. You know, bottom half, 12, 13 in the Big Ten. Like they're like, well, this is just a waste. You know, everybody hates Lovey already and think it's a problem. But if you look at like the average star, like the quality of this class, we haven't seen anything like it since 07 when we brought in guys like Aurelius Ben and you know Martez Wilson, guys that played in the league, and some guys are still playing in the league. And Lovey's really, he brought some good pathways with some of his recruiters like Austin Clark, D-line coach, Hayes Stoker, wide receivers coach. He's been working a lot in Texas. And I think you see that, and also Corey Patterson in St. Louis area, really getting some guys. And I mean, we've talked about a lot of these guys already, so it's not crazy news. Isaiah Williams, Marquez Beeson, the two headliners, 4-star guys, arguably 5-star, depending on who you're talking to. Just guys that can change the program. They really like Isaiah Williams as a quarterback, even though he's about 5'10" on his best day. But we've seen, we just gave a Heisman Trophy to a guy under 6 foot, and Lovey said that himself. That the league, the college football landscape is changing, and it's not about having a 6'6", you know, Texas or California bred quarterback to sling the ball everywhere. Like, you can be dynamic in college football, and that's what Isaiah Williams and Marquez Beeson. Guys we've talked about in the past, I won't talk about a whole lot. Griffin Moore, tight end, Bloomington, one of the lesser rated guys, but a solid piece nonetheless, and a great recruiter from everything I hear.
Griffin Moore coming out of Bloomington originally as a quarterback, right?
Yeah, well, you know that the talent level on Bloomington has
Gavin knows.
Yeah, it's been low, and he took him to a playoff run recently for the first time in a while. And just kind of one of those, like, put your best athlete at quarterback, and hopefully the offense can figure it out from there. So Moore is definitely a good piece, a solid piece. Now, I think he could probably redshirt, just since we can talk about guys that are actually 100% on the team right now. Guy that could trim up and gain some of the right weight, but play good tight end. And a lot of guys talk about, like, a Daniel Barker, like, already on the team. Similar type guy if he can put on the right weight and cut the bad weight. But he's just a good kid, good overall kid. Other guys we've already talked about. Joseph Thompson, DB out of Chicago. Now, the crazy thing is that, you know, we talked about McCray being from Phillips as well, and he decommitted. You guys have talked about it before. Thompson stayed, but he sat out the whole season with growing pains, like literal growing pains.
Yeah, he went from 5'10" to like over 6 foot this season.
Yeah, and that he's fitting even more and more of a mold that Illinois likes to see out of their DBs. He's going to play DB. So, like, that's just a good guy to keep around. And when we flipped him from Iowa State, he was kind of concerned about, you know, medicals, and we weren't quite sold on him. And I think it shows more than anything, since they stuck with him, that the medical is secondary to the type of player he is. So they really like him. I believe we've talked about Nick Fidanzo out of Montana, running back.
Yep.
Could redshirt, but a guy that we evaluated as talent more than some higher-ranked guys in the state of Illinois, like a Jarrell Brock who went to Iowa State, or Williams who went to Michigan State, guys in the area. So they really like him, and I mean, from what I've seen on film, he was on such a good team, and he led such a good team that stats don't bear out, but he didn't play a lot of late games until, you know, like I said, playoff time, which had a great playoff run. Some guys that I don't know if we've talked about a whole lot. I really, really like Casey Washington, wide receiver out of Pflugerville in Texas. 6'2", just great ball control. One of his last high school games, he made a crazy back shoulder one-hand catch on a kid. And this guy, I really like. I'm excited. We haven't seen quite the talent like he's had this past season. I know we've all talked about just the drops that we saw this past season, and things left out there on the field. And I think he's a guy that can really play well and even play early.
Well, I think he needs to play early. We need another guy to pair with Ricky Smalling, take some pressure off of him.
Yeah, and there's some transfer talk too, which we can get to that after.
Oh, really?
After the signing, and there's some wide receiver talk there. But guys, Keith Randolph from Belleville West, an Illinois guy.
Say that's the guy I wanted you to talk about.
Oh yeah, for sure. So this was really interesting.
This is what I wanted to hear.
We were putting in a top 3 early, and it seemed like Illinois all the way for Randolph, and some big guys come knocking. Michigan State especially got him on an official visit, and really they did a good job there, and they thought they were in a good spot. And then the night before signing day, Florida State went in and gave an offer. Now, if you can say you beat Florida State and Michigan State for a player, that's something.
Yes.
And
especially for the way that the Illini football program is currently.
Absolutely. And so that Randolph was somebody that was a question mark. We didn't know what was quite going to happen. But a really good signing, a really athletic guy, basketball player. He's like 6'5", and just knows how to use his body. He's still young to football, too, so there's totally time to develop. He's only played for a couple of years now when you realize what potential he had. Another D lineman, Moses Okpala from St. Louis area again, Ladue Hortons. He's 6'7", just a freak of nature. Great kid, came from Africa, had a host family here, and they really guided him. And they really like what the staff is doing. They trust him to take Moses and make him into a great player, and a guy that I think has just more potential, like a Jihad Ward type, which I know Illinois fans are gonna love to hear that. But a really good kid. We haven't talked about Evan Kurtz, really offensive line, Brother Rice. From what I hear, this is just a guy, another redshirt candidate, but Illinois really needed offensive line here this year. They really couldn't get any of the names they were looking at, which we don't even talk about guys they didn't get, but guys that did get. Kurtz, I know that Butkus really likes him.
Yep.
And like I said, another guy that could be like a Pal, playing early if he can develop and get the right body weight going on him. But I hear good things about him. Another guy we talked about, Seth Coleman. This guy was quite a scare.
Yep.
From what I heard, it was really hard to get in touch with him. And I also heard somewhere that he lost his phone on a visit on campus, which I tell you, if you're trying to contact him in Florida, his phone being in the CU isn't a great place to start. But he signed, no problem. A lot of people were wondering what was going to happen, and it turned out well. And then speaking of guys that were hard to talk about, Kyron Cumby. This guy, we had to push back the press conference on signing day with Lovey because he was last minute signing. And a really dynamic player, Tariq Cohen type guy. His dad went to Texas Tech. Texas Tech was in on him. They just fired Kingsbury, their former head coach. And from what I've heard talking to some of my friends is that are in on it, if they would have kept Kingsbury, they could have flipped him, honestly. But a guy that stuck around, which is really good to have, and a guy that's very dynamic. But I believe that wraps up our actual class, which, like I said, just really good talent all over for those guys.
So, Jake, I wanted to ask you, too. You brought up Lovie Smith and the contract extension. Me, Tyson, and Gavin have obviously talked about it on the previous episode. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? If Lovie or Whitman does not give the contract extension to Lovie Smith, what does that mean for all of these guys that have signed? Are they going to still come here? Are they going to believe in the Illini? What does that how does that affect all of this class that is coming in?
Well, I follow a lot of the recruits that we have, guys like Washington and Beeson especially. Beeson's very vocal on social media.
Yep.
And they were so happy that their coach signed, like they were all in on him. I think you were in an interesting position in Illinois where I didn't see a whole lot of options where you don't extend them, and I think Whitman did it right. I feel like maybe, and I can't speak on this, maybe it's harder to have Cumby, maybe it's harder to get Seth Coleman if you don't have that extension, but like I said, I saw a lot of guys that were really excited on Twitter about Lovie sticking around. A lot of these kids and their families just really respect Lovey as a man, as a guy that can take their boys and raise them into men on the football field and through, discipline and respect and things like that. So, I mean, you don't see it, and Lovey's not a rah-rah guy. You won't see him spending the night at kids' houses like, Harbaugh. But just somebody that it seems like families really respect him and trust him. I think that's the side of recruiting people don't talk about, but having Lovey be that type of figure is really important for getting some of these kids.
Branching off of that real quick, if we forget the recruitment class that happened yesterday, the extension of Coach Lovie Smith, was it earned before any of this even occurred? What's your thoughts on that?
So I'll go way back to the first offseason that Lovey had when we got rid of Beckman. And you think about it, his recruiting class was really just getting Hardy Nickerson's son to transfer. Like, none of the freshmen that came in were his guys, his recruits. And so that's hard to build a foundation. So when people are saying, Lovey's in year 3, or, when Lovey was in year 2, I feel like he's really in year 1. Like, he's always a step behind what people give him credit for. So I really don't think that the product he's put out yet is quite something that is indicative to his time he's been there. At the same hand, I saw a really competitive team. We saw a great win against Minnesota. We saw them play Penn State great for 3 quarters. I wish we could have had a 4th, but
played great in Chicago too.
Yeah, played great in Chicago.
Another game we should have won.
Yeah, a lot of games you should have won, and that's comes with maturity. And we talk about having young players. Well, this is turning into an old roster. A lot of these juniors that are true blue juniors, like this is where they've been around. They've been the guys that Lovey started as freshmen, and coming in the next season, I think you can really see the experience, especially on the offensive line. A lot of those guys that played early when they were young are savvy. They've seen everything that there is to see out of the Big Ten. I think that showed last year, and I think it can only get better. You lose Allegretti on the offensive line, but you add a guy like Larry Boyd who was suspended. And, you could argue there's not as much drop-off as people think, and I think that's going to be across the rosters where you see guys that we think of as young guys, but they've played, 2.5 seasons of Big Ten football already, and then it's just going to get better with the redshirt rules where you can redshirt a guy after 4 games and things like that. And, it's turning into an old team. It's weird to say, but I think it's turning into an older team.
Now, you say the whole roster. Obviously, the defense is included with that. The secondary of Illinois, atrocious all season long. How do we address that?
I think a good start was at the end of the season. We see Tony Adams playing safety, and he looked really comfortable out there, really instinctive. You got guys like Marquez Beeson coming in who can be a lockdown corner and looks to start immediately. I like guys like Sidney Brown and Quan Martin getting time as freshmen and playing, and that's just going to get better as they get older. Really about what Lovey does, taking over the defensive play calling. The problem is that people know what he's going to run. It's the Tampa 2. It's been the Tampa 2 since Tampa was invented. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how it's always been. And it's like, can he adapt to this new league where you're going to be 4 wide for most of the game if you're playing, a lot of teams? Obviously, you're going to see some of the traditional schools still have a fullback. But, in reality, you're going to have 5 DBs, sometimes 6 DBs for over half the game. So, can he take enough new into his old and make it a legitimate defense? So they got some pieces, and we talk about guys, not even just DB, like Milo Eifler, linebacker, who he transferred, and he had to sit out a year for NCAA rules, and he's gonna come in. And another guy, linebacker, who there's rumors he signed, there's rumors he didn't sign. He's waiting until Under Armour game, but Shimon Cooper, another guy that can come in, maybe play. So all around, just can Lovey take the pieces he has and play 2019 football in his Tampa 2. I think that's where I'm at with it.
That's where I have 2 questions coming off of that. Is the secondary was already young to begin with coming into the season. If you replace those guys with more young guys, more or less they're just as talented, if not more talented. Will it work?
You'll see older guys. Like I said, Tony Adams has played. You got Nate Hobbs, there's some rumors that he's been in trouble with the staff, and we might see some continued suspension. But like I said, I have no inside knowledge on it. I can't speak on it. It's just what I've heard through people talking to me, through what I find on the internet. So there's rumors that could be an issue. But he is a guy that comes in with a lot of experience. Like I said, Adams is an animal. He leads that secondary like Eric Berry. I don't know if you guys saw when he came back, and he's getting corners in place in primetime games, and he hadn't played in months. And I think Adams is similar, where the whole system flows better when he's back there at safety and patrolling. And so I think that you'll see a good mix. But you need a guy like Marquez Beeson play right away. No doubt about it in my mind.
Absolutely. And my second question off of that, you said, and everyone knows this, Lovie Smith is Tampa 2 defense. We see it at Illinois. We saw it in Chicago. We've seen it for the past couple decades, let's be honest. You need the right personnel to run that defense effectively and efficiently. Is there enough on this roster for next year to run it effectively and efficiently?
Well, you talk about the key to the Tampa 2, and that's the middle linebacker.
Absolutely.
Urlacher, we talked about it. Levante David in Tampa when Lovie was there. And, he brought in Hardy's son right away to run that system, and it made sense. Delshawn had a career year in terms of career in college, but had one of his best seasons playing middle linebacker for Illinois last year, and kind of, in my opinion, got snubbed on some All Big Ten, but that's regardless. So the question is, can Eifler or can Shaman Cooper, if and when he signs, come and play that spot, or can guys step up? Does Hansen play a good middle linebacker coming from the weak side? And Jake Hansen is a guy who we saw make a lot of good plays, good tackles. Kent State had a ton of tackles for loss. Is that something that, is he the right guy? But it's definitely interesting to see what linebacker core comes out. But I think it does start with the linebacker, and I think there are guys that can play it.
The first 3 weeks of the season, Hansen was dominant. I mean, he played really well. As you saw, he won Big Ten Player of the Week when they're in the Kent State game. And then he was kind of quiet the rest of the year. But I'm a big fan of Jake Hansen and how he plays, how he's all over the field at a given time. But real quick, let's wrap it up on this. What are your expectations coming in for next season for the Illini football program?
Well, and I think there's one thing I want to add before that is with this transfer talk, there's some guys that, and because that's going to make a big impact.
Right.
There's rumors on Luke Ford, tight end, was at Georgia right now. He's in the transfer portal, as they call it, the transfer portal, so you can talk about this. And from what I've heard, he was back home in Carterville, Illinois, while the team was preparing for the Sugar Bowl. He's out. He wants everything out, and Kirby Smart doesn't want him to leave quite yet.
Everything I understand, Kirby Smart's kind of like holding him hostage in this situation, if you can believe that, if you can say it that way.
Do we have a Blake Griffin situation where the chair is in front of the door?
Yeah. Well, I think from what I hear and what talking to people is that Kirby thinks that seeing if Luke sees them preparing for a Sugar Bowl and to play Texas, and he might become more into it. But I mean, honestly, if you're getting held like that and you don't want to be there, I'd argue it's just worse.
More detrimental than anything.
Yeah. So Luke Ford is a guy, and it sounds like he's all but an Illini as soon as Kirby Smart lets him. So that's a tight end, a big guy, 6'5", 6'6", a good blocker. They use him mostly for blocking in special teams at Georgia this year. He's got one catch for 10 yards on the season. But a top 100 guy, top 50 guy even, coming out of high school from Carterville, a guy that really wants to be here. His dad's a huge Illini fan. Another thing, wide receiver. Now, I mentioned that earlier. There are two targets in the transfer market that we know of right now. One is Jeff Thomas, former East St. Louis Flyer, played at Miami, and he was a stud at Miami, but he left the team during the season. He parted ways with coach, and there were some issues, and he's looking to come back to the area to play. He has children in the East St. Louis area, so that's where the hardship waiver could play. There was talks about could he get the hardship better at Mizzou or Illinois, which is kind of like a bragging rights setup if we want to talk about it. But it sounds like Illinois is very much a player in here, but also you hear different news on this one every day. It seems like whichever way the wind's blowing is determining which way Jeff Thomas is leaning, but the NCAA has a lot to play in that. And then last, a guy, A.D. Miller from Oklahoma. He started 10 games for Oklahoma, and he's in the transfer portal as well. So these are all guys we can talk about. It's been hinted. I've seen this on a lot of forums and reports about a Big 12 receiver, and it's turned out to be A.D. now that he's been announced. And there's a lot of interest, but from what I've heard is that he actually already started the Illinois application process.
Ooh.
So that's a start. But like I said, now that he's in the portal, a lot of teams know about it. A lot of good teams could want a guy that started 10 games at Oklahoma. So that could be something. It could be just smoke and no fire. We're going to figure out soon. But if you look at those guys, if you get any number of those guys into the offense that already runs the ball well, some receivers like that, and then if Isaiah Williams plays quarterback on that team, or if you got some of the guys that have been there, that's a whole different offense. And then, like I said, defense, I got a lot of guys I like at D-line and DB that got brought in. So I think this is like the next step here. Like they're not good yet. Like they're not a great team yet, but they're bowl eligible, maybe. I know I came in early and had my predictions. I thought they were going to be this year, and boy, was I wrong. And, I could be optimistic, but I think this is like the step year. This is where it's like, okay. And then the year after that, you're like, these are guys that have played and they're good. And it starts with this class, which Lovey says is like a foundational class. So that's pretty much where I'm at. Bowl eligible is where I feel like this team gets, especially with these transfers. It'd make a huge difference if they lock these guys in.
One question I have is, out of all of that information that you just gave us, just the one takeaway that I had was you brought up the transfer watch when we were talking about wide receiver. I brought up Ricky Smalling. What does this mean for him in the future?
I think we've seen the enigma that is Ricky Smalling, similar to what Illinois fans see with Kipper Nichols playing on the basketball team, is that like he can be a dominant guy, an elite go-get-it guy, and he can disappear some games. And it's very frustrating because he's got a lot of talent and he's played a lot of downs. So it's you wonder, is it the fact that teams aren't worried about Sam Mays and Daniel Barker, playing other receiving options, that they're like, we can double Ricky and he'll have some drops and we're going to live with that, and I'll let Sam Mays drop the ball on the other end. No offense to Sam Mays, but tape plays the tape. The film doesn't lie. Having more weapons around him and letting Rod Smith use those toys, I licking my chops thinking about it, but can Ricky be more successful when talent's around him? I think that's really what we can think about.
And that's the question that I was thinking to myself was how much better would Smalling be if we were able to bring in a number 2 receiver or even move him to the number 2 receiver,
Absolutely.
depending.
Yeah.
We could see his true talent. Because I think Ricky, for as much as we've seen of him, he is a number 2 guy. But he's a really good number 2 guy.
Yeah.
And I really like the last image we have of him in that Northwestern game when he pulled down that touchdown pass. I think that was what Illinois fans have been wanting to see from him all season. And the fact that we did see it, I think that's obviously what he's capable of, but we want to see more of it.
Yeah, and like I said, you see these guys, and we said transfer, but also Casey Washington, who is a big body guy. And I think that adding this talent does not hurt Ricky's chances of getting the ball. It only helps him in that regard.
Absolutely. So with all that being said, I'm kind of excited for this class. Gav, I don't know about you. This is the first time you've really got to sit down and look at it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't been. Let me tell you what. Holiday season, I haven't been keeping up with sports much, other than college and basketball, the Bears, and NBA.
Right.
I've had to take a break from NHL for a little bit.
Me too.
Catch highlights every now and then, but even the trades and baseball, I haven't been keeping up with. It's been a really trying few weeks.
Speaking of the NHL, man, the Hawks are so bad. I can't even watch them right now. We did get a big win last night against Dallas. 4-2.
How about that win over the Predators,
and
though?
We beat the Predators, so we are going to beat some teams we shouldn't beat. But, man, I'm having a hard time watching hockey.
And I tell you what, I can't thank you enough for Chicago taking down the Predators, because we need somebody to stop them. We're still chasing Tampa Bay up there in the standings.
Tampa Bay is going to be tough for the next couple
absolutely,
of years.
And I am worried.
Yeah.
I wasn't about a month ago, and now I'm really worried about the Lightning. But we'll see how that goes. But
well, let's move on to NFL. Let's stay on football. We got a little bit of basketball we need to get into as well today. But let's move on to football. Mainly the Pro Bowl selection for the Chicago Bears. All three of us in here, Tyson not being here, obviously our Cowboys guy. But we're all Bears fans in here. And I just want to break down real quick of all the guys that got selected from the Chicago Bears this season. There's 5 of them in total. So let's go.
Second most by any team in the Pro Bowl.
Number 1, we got Tariq Cohen. Obviously, Tariq Cohen this season's been tearing everything in half for the Chicago Bears. Number 2, we got Kyle Fuller, Keem Hicks, Eddie Jackson, and obviously rounding that out is Khalil Mack. And if he wasn't on the Pro Bowl team, then there was going to be some issues, in my opinion. But let's start off with this. Who do you guys think, Gavin, let's start with you. Who do you think got snubbed in the Pro Bowl this season for the Chicago Bears?
Oh, for the Bears, I immediately go to Adrian Amos just because I think that Eddie Jackson overshadows everything that guy does in that secondary. If I had to pick another guy, I think the 2 that come to mind, probably Roquan Smith and Danny Trevathan. Roquan, he got his first interception since high school in that Rams game. That was pretty awesome to see. But not only that, he's in the top 5 actually, he might even still be in the top 3. I haven't checked in about a week. In tackles for all defensive players, rookies.
It's Darius Leonard, Van Der Esch, and then Roquan Smith.
Okay, so there we go. Top 3. And then Danny Trevathan, I just think that he doesn't get enough credit at that middle linebacker spot with all these studs that we have around him. He was the guy until we brought in Mack and Roquan Smith, Hakeem Hicks. I mean, Danny Trevathan was the guy the last couple of years. I think he's just been overshadowed. I don't think he deserved a Pro Bowl selection this year just because there's so many other great middle linebackers in the NFC, but I definitely think he deserved a shout-out.
Who do you think got snubbed, Jake?
And, Gav touched on some guys that got a little bit of praise, but I'm going to go to a guy that got no praise whatsoever, and that's Eddie Goldman. I know that as an offensive lineman, I know the value of a nose like Eddie that can just eat up blocks, and it's just a mess to deal with. It ruins everything. It ruins double teams, ruins getting second level, and Eddie didn't even get an alternate vote, let alone actual Pro Bowl vote. So, to me, I think it's just an outrage, but then again, you kind of overlook the silent guys that make a lot of things happen when you think of, okay, Khalil Mack's out here, Akeem Hicks is stopping everything because he's getting one-on-one blocks, and Eddie's taking two guys. You look at Leonard Floyd getting 2 sacks against the Packers, and really it comes down to Eddie. I mean, he doesn't make a lot of the big numbers, but just a guy that's solid, and like I said, playing offensive line, I know the value in him, but I think other people really need to start realizing that.
The Pro Bowl, you guys, I'm a newer football fan. I haven't really been watching. I really started watching football last year when they drafted Mitch Trubisky. As Gavin knows, I wanted him to take Deshaun Watson.
As did I, believe it or not, yes.
But anyway, how does this Pro Bowl selection work? Is this done by media? Is it done by fans? Is it done by the NFL? I honestly have no idea.
So they make a big deal about the fan vote, right? We're always talking about teams like with the hashtags and all that. But fan vote only accounts for a third of how a team is selected. Another third is the coaches of all the teams, and then another third is the players. So you really see guys like Akeem Hicks, who wasn't getting quite the love from the fans because they don't realize other players and other coaches are like, no, this guy's the real deal. He's tough to beat. Like, he's just a monster. And so while we make a big fuss about the fans, it is a 3-part process that's supposed to be even. And regardless of how wrong fans can be sometimes, we've seen the MLB vote be a mess just on which fan base is hot. But I think there's a little more balance in the NFL, but really it needs to kind of move more and more towards the players because they know who's good, they know who's tough to beat, and it's just who ruins a game plan. So that's how I am with it.
He's absolutely right, but I also think that there should be a multi-party system just so everything's not so one-sided. I mean, you gotta have opinions from everywhere. But if I can touch on something real quick that really irritated me, and it's not just because I don't like the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers does not need to be in the Pro Bowl this year.
No.
Not whatsoever. And that is a completely unbiased statement. There's many people, many articles out there saying that Rodgers is having the worst statistical season of his career. Doesn't need to be there. If just for comparison, if we look at a guy like Matt Ryan, the Atlanta Falcons, they only have 4 wins, but it's not because of Matt. I mean, it might be because of Julio Jones can only catch like 3 touchdown passes in a season, but I love Julio. It's because that defense has been beat up the entire year, and that started in the very first game against the Philadelphia Eagles. Matt Ryan is having the best season since his MVP year, if not better. It's just not translating to wins. And how he didn't make it in it blows my mind. It really does.
And it's just like I hate it when the vote gets into like who's been good and who's not who's good right now. But I think you see that, and you see guys like the rookie from Indianapolis, Leonard. He's having a career year for anybody. It doesn't matter that he's a rookie. He's playing better than
147 tackles on the year.
Yeah, and like 6 or 8 sacks, something like that.
Something unreal.
He said when he heard that he didn't get there, he was going to go for 30 or 40 tackles the next game just to prove everybody wrong. That's the snub in my book across the league. That's the biggest one.
Granted, we still have replacements to work with. If a team that has a position that needs to be filled makes it to the Super Bowl, I mean, he may get a spot. Matt Ryan may get a spot. It just all depends. There's always going to be someone that gets snubbed, but I felt like this year there was a lot more than there weren't in the past few years that I've seen the selections made. And man, it's been really frustrating.
So let's move on to Sunday. We have the 49ers, I believe, and it's going to take place here in America at 3:30. Out there, it's going to be like noon. Anyway, so right now we have. What do we have to do in order? What has to happen? Let me ask this as opposed to talking about the games. I feel like I have full confidence in the Bears can take down the 49ers. But what do we have to do in order to get either a home field advantage or a first-round bye?
We were talking about it, Gavin and I, earlier, and we were debating. You look at the 2 seeds above the Bears right now, the 1 and 2 seeds, New Orleans and L.A. And with that, you're saying, well, there's a chance to springboard. I mean, granted, it's small, but there is a chance. And we were saying, I don't want to play in New Orleans. I
No.
mean, in the Superdome there.
That place is loud.
It's loud, it's crazy, and weird things happen in the Superdome. I'd love for that to be in Chicago. And Gav talked about L.A. You know, we saw how uncomfortable they were in Chicago, and it would be a clear advantage to have that game played at Soldier in the cold, maybe even the snow. With that, the Bears need to win out. I mean, that's no doubt. They've got 4 losses right now. If you want to be a top seed, New Orleans only has 2 weeks left. Easy math. They have to win out. New Orleans has to lose out. But with that,
For anyone that didn't know that equation, yes.
yeah, no, I mean, college education, I thank it. But with that, with New Orleans losing out, they would have to lose to Carolina, which, I mean, Gav, you can talk about it. I don't really like this Panthers team. I don't know if you do.
No, not at all. And I'm sorry, my buddy John, if you're listening, he's a big Carolina fan. You brought it up, I believe, earlier, if it wasn't off air. Cam Newton, there's something wrong with his shoulder.
Yeah.
There is an obvious problem.
Ball more than 7 yards.
And Cale attested to that. You can't throw the ball even 10 yards down the field. How do you expect to get a first down? Their backup, I believe, is still Anderson, isn't it? Or did they got rid of him?
I hope not.
Yeah, I think he's in Buffalo now. I have no idea who their backup is right now.
Buffalo, Peterman's going to Oakland.
Yeah, Nathan Peterman in Oakland. How about that? Sorry, Gary, if you're listening. No, this Carolina team, as much as I hate to say it, they're done because I love their defense. Their defense is stout. They held the Saints, I think, 12 points in that game on Monday Night Football just this week.
Thanks to Luke Kuechly.
Yeah.
Backup quarterback, by the way, Taylor Heineke.
Yeah, who?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
Not ideal. Not Cam Newton, that's for sure.
No, if they decide to sit Cam because their playoff chances are pretty much done, that guarantees New Orleans the 1 seed essentially. But that still means the Bears could get the number 2 because, yes, the Bears are going to San Francisco, but the Rams also have to go to San Francisco. Mm-hmm. The Niners have been a team that's been up and down all season, especially after they lost Jimmy G. This Nick Mullins guy from Ole Miss, what the heck? Where did this guy come from? Because he's been slinging the ball.
Southern Miss, right?
You're right.
Yeah,
Southern Miss. So he's been slinging the ball to George Kittle, that amazing tight end, that Pro Bowl tight end there in San Fran. And I tell you what, this guy, in how many games has he played in? 8, I think.
Yeah, just about.
This season, he's almost thrown for 2,000 yards. He's almost 1,800 yards right now. 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and he's well over 60% of his completion rating. And this is a guy that had to step in. He's a rookie backup quarterback. I mean, that's astounding to me. And also, as good as San Francisco has been on the defensive side of things this past couple weeks, the run game for them has been really surprising because they're doing this with guys I've never even heard of. You know,
You got Prita the Cheetah still, or is he?
I don't know. I mean, that's I have watched one Niner game this season. I expect the Bears to wipe the floor with him. That's what I expect. Mitch is going to have a bounce back game. All these people talking mad stuff about him. I hope he does at least. And then, they have a good game. San Francisco wants to beat their division rival. I'm banking on the Rams losing. Bears have the tiebreaker, obviously, after that game. They won 15-6. And then get the 2 seed, get a bye week, come back strong, face New Orleans in the championship.
Get Eddie Jackson back, too.
Absolutely.
We don't know how long he's going to be out, but it was looking like this week for sure he's in a boot earlier. And if you can get Eddie back sooner the better because he makes a crazy difference on that team. He is just a playmaker.
Well, the Rams look really bad. I mean, ever since that Chicago game, they have not looked good. And I'm like I said, I don't know the X's and O's of football that well. But that being said, if you look at what Jared Goff's offensive line is doing to him, they are giving him absolutely zero time to throw the ball. He has had no time the last 2 weeks to actually get set and make a pass.
There's that, and Jared Goff and this Rams offense, McVay has drawn it up for him that he wants to throw the ball down the field. Todd Gurley runs it. They run the play action. He throws bombs. That's what Jared Goff likes to do. And if you notice in that Monday night game or Sunday night game against the Bears at Soldier Field, I'm going to keep going back to this because if you go back and watch the tape, it's such a good game to watch, and how Matt Nagy drew it up for his defense and said, this is what we're going to do, and force Goff into these turnovers or check it down. There's a reason Todd Gurley only got the ball on 11 carries. And I think he had less than 30 yards or 40 yards. In that game, Todd Gurley, I think, got the ball for 4 carries on the first drive for -1 yards. There's a reason they went away from us because we took it away. And then they kept flashing cover 2, cover 4, and they kept going in and out of it. And that really confused Jared Goff because he wants to throw the ball down the field, but like you said, his offensive line is not giving him enough time to do that. He doesn't like to throw the check down. That forces the interception because the Bears secondary is just too good. And so yes, McVay is this guru, he's this genius, but I don't think enough people give credit to Matt Nagy coming over from Kansas City in his first year with the Bears and what he's been able to do with not just the offense. We've seen his crazy offense and schemes that he's put in this year. That defense is stout and hands down the best in the league. I've said it all year long.
1985.
No, yeah. I haven't seen a defense that good since then. Here, well,
No.
you say 06, but just in terms of just dominance, it's crazy. They can just crush the will of an opposing team with that run defense. They're just stout, and then when you gotta give up and throw, it's too late. And Eddie Jackson is waiting for when you do.
Absolutely.
So that being said, the Bears have the Niners left this Sunday, which is the 23rd, and I had to look and see what day it was. And then we have to go to Minnesota to play the Vikings Week 17. The Vikings are still in the hunt, I guess, from what I'm understanding. They're 7-6-1. They're projected 6th seed right now. The Seahawks, they're 8-6. The Cowboys 8-6. The Bears 10-4. So that's your NFC. Let's move over to AFC real quick because we rarely talk about AFC because nobody in this room likes any AFC teams.
Sorry, Gary.
But Kansas City at 11-3, and then Texans at 10-4. I know when we did our early football predictions for this season, me, you, and Tyson, Gavin, none of us had the Texans sitting at the top in the division. And then you move down. You got the Ravens at 8-6, the Patriots at 9-5. Thank God. You got the Chargers, Phillip Rivers 11-3, and then Big Ben and the Steelers with AB and Juju, who's my favorite player in the league, at 8-5-1. So right now you're going to have the Chiefs and the Texans playing each other if everything sits. What is your guys' predictions for the AFC?
Well, I think it's pretty safe to say that AFC playoff picture is going to change. It's definitely going to move around. You got the Chargers and the Chiefs battling it out for that number 1 seed. Don't know who's going to get that. Whoever ends up at the 5 seed, man, I feel sorry for you. You're not getting a home playoff game because I don't think the Chargers really deserve a home playoff game because they don't have any fans. But whoever is a Chargers fan, hey, shout out to you. Your team's already won 11 games. You got two to go. Kansas City, if they get the 1 seed and it's got to go through Arrowhead, there's no doubt in my mind that they'll make it to at least a championship game because Arrowhead is a tough place to play. I understand that Andy Reid is a guy that he's got this monkey on his back that he can never have success in the playoffs. But I think
Patrick Mahomes out here throwing no lookers.
You got Patrick Mahomes, and I think that's all. I think that's all he needs right now. We've seen the absence of Kareem Hunt has slowed their offense down a little bit. Obviously, that defense in Kansas City is, I mean, it's a handicap to say the least. I like that Eric Berry is back, but he's still not Eric Berry of a few years ago. I just don't think that that's enough to put them over the edge, but I still think that they got a pretty good shot to make it to the Super Bowl. Ultimately, I think the Chargers are in the driver's seat of this thing. I mean, their defense has stepped up. Their offense, man, if they don't have the best wide receiver core in the entire NFL, I don't know who does.
Pittsburgh.
Well, arguable. I think they have maybe the best 2 receivers, but overall, I mean, that's it. I mean, the Chargers got it going on, especially Phillip Rivers. I've always liked watching Rivers at quarterback. I don't know what it is. He's never had success. I don't think he's never been to the Super Bowl.
No, he was in the AFC Championship game when he tore his ACL and was playing on it, which is insane.
Yeah, that's a competitor right there, and that's who you want running your offense. But I think at this point in his career, I think it's his time. If he's going to, this is it to get a ring. And if he does, I honestly wouldn't be upset as long as it's not against the Bears.
They're dangerous too. I think there's not a more dangerous team in the AFC side than the Chargers right now. The Chiefs have some warts. We've seen it, giving up a lot of points. Texans, they started off 0-3. I don't know how that even happened. And then we've got Patriots, which talk about losing Josh Gordon just the other day. So that's something that can really slow them down with Gronk looking about as old and broken as he's ever looked before.
Brady.
And Brady. So I think the Chargers can be crazy hot coming into the playoffs. And veteran quarterbacks play well in the playoffs. It was from what we've seen more often than not.
Absolutely. One last thing that I would add in there is that don't let Indianapolis get into the playoffs because they will go on a run. That defense is the best in the NFL since Week 8, statistically speaking. They have the most takeaways, most points off takeaways the last 6 or 7 weeks. You don't want to see the Colts. You don't want to see the Colts in the playoffs.
And they've been protecting Andrew Luck, which is what they haven't done in years. And
Quentin Nelson.
It's dangerous.
Can I just say, man, don't get me wrong. I love that the Bears went and drafted Mitchell Trubisky, but I would almost rather have anyone else back there and us have Quentin Nelson on that offensive line. He is the best young lineman in the league right now. I think he could be the next Joe Thomas. I think he really could be at that guard position. We've already seen him pancake 3 different guys this season. I mean, it's incredible what that guy's done and how much impact he's had. Just one lineman has had on that offensive line, and just that extra second Andrew Luck has in the pocket to throw the ball to T.Y. Hilton or Eric Ebron down the field. It's incredible.
That's Pro Bowl Quentin Nelson, too. Rightfully earned.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's transition into basketball now. Let's wrap this thing up. Gavin, I want to break down the NBA first real quick. I keep hearing reports or rumors, trade rumors, whatever, free agent rumors, whatever you want to call them, just rumors in general about Anthony Davis, the Brow, potentially joining the Lakers at some point. Jake and I were talking about this on the way over here. He did sign with a new agent that is known for getting guys who want to play with the Los Angeles Lakers to L.A. So you're our basketball guru here. What's going on with that?
That's Rich Paul. Rich Paul's been LeBron's agent ever since he came in the league. He's signed guys like this, for example, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope signed with the Lakers a couple years ago. That's where this notion came from. I think him getting a new agent, he's a superstar, so I see why people would think that. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, though. If it does, it'll probably be in another year. New Orleans they'd be stupid to trade him right now. They can get a lot more out of Anthony Davis. I mean, this guy is MVP candidate. If his team was just doing a little bit better, hovering around 500 right now. It could happen. I mean, I'm not going to say it couldn't happen, but
the thing with the Pelicans is you take Anthony Davis off that team.
Yeah, I think you win maybe 25 games in the Western Conference, maybe.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine. I just think that this guy's too good. I know Boston's been in the conversation the past couple years and given them like 4 draft picks and a couple players for Anthony Davis.
That'd be scary.
I don't think that Danny Ainge has the cojones to pull the trigger on that. Especially when you got guys like Jason Tatum already and Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier. I mean, it's just a really deep roster. Gordon Hayward coming back. Started to look like himself a little bit more when he had that 30-point game. Now he's coming back down to where he was. I just hope that he can stay at that high level of play. But we all know 5 players on the court, 1 basketball can only do so much. Kyrie Irving's been balling out, though. Just shout out to that.
He's back, too.
Absolutely. But getting back to AD, when LeBron comes out and says it would be amazing to play with this guy, I think pretty good sign that he's going to try to recruit you there. There was talks of them meeting up in L.A. sometime because the Pelicans play Lakers, I believe, tonight. Mm-hmm. If they do, I don't know if that's tampering. Some people have been talking about that's tampering, but, I mean, they got Magic Johnson with it. I don't know if they're going to hit LeBron with that. It's possible. It's possible. I just don't think anytime soon.
I just keep seeing that, and I just keep thinking, man, LeBron and then Anthony Davis, that would be a rough team to play against because LeBron and Anthony Davis together would be very scary, even though LeBron is, 33? I don't think it really matters because that guy is superhuman. Honestly, LeBron is a stud, and I know I'm not a big LeBron fan, but I like the way he plays.
Yeah.
And you add Anthony Davis to that mix.
Yeah. If you keep Rajon Rondo and Lonzo Ball on the roster, those are the 2 perfect guys you want running that offense.
Yeah.
Because obviously you got LeBron who can do everything, and then you got Anthony Davis who can almost do everything. So, I mean, you're looking at a super team almost, I would say.
If they add, let's just end it on that. If they add Anthony Davis, what's that mean for guys like JaVale McGee, Kyle Kuzma, Lance Stevenson obviously would be gone.
I think JaVale's safe. Lance could be safe, possibly. I think the guys you got to worry about is Brandon Ingram's a big one. I think he'd be moved. Lonzo Ball, I think it's a question mark. Josh Hart.
I would honestly rather have Kyle Kuzma over Lonzo Ball.
I think Kuzma the guy. If you're going to keep one, you're going to keep Kuzma. If you have to, I would trade Ball and Ingram, and obviously a couple of first-round picks, whatever you need to do. But yeah, I mean Kuzma you got to keep. But I think those 3 and Josh Hart. I think those 3, Ball, Ingram, and Hart would all be on the table if you're going to trade for Davis. Yeah.
Last thing, Toronto and Indiana matched up 2 nights ago. Indiana
Heck of a game.
Run for their money.
Heck of a game.
It's just that we couldn't execute. We had 24 turnovers to your guys' 9. Miles Turner, heck of a game. He had to go up against Pascal a lot, a guy who's a lot quicker, a lot faster, and he also had to go up against Greg Monroe. Greg Monroe, man, he played a hell of a game for you guys. Kawhi obviously is going to play no matter what. It all came down to that game, honestly. And what I saw was the amount of turnovers that Indiana had. and the fact that Victor Oladipo couldn't get the lid off of the basket. Tyreek Evans has been struggling. Dougie McBuckets is back, though. McBuckets has been playing pretty well these last couple games. He's been averaging, I think, 11.2, which is a lot more than what he was averaging about 3 weeks ago. Miles Turner, welcome to his block party. But that Toronto Raptors team is just too much. I mean, they just couldn't handle it. If they didn't turn the ball over 23 times, it would have been a lot different story.
Well, and this was a game I was anticipating them losing with the absence of Kyle Lowry and Jonas Valanciunas. Luckily for us, I mean, Kawhi Leonard decided to show up, and how about that shot from Fred VanVleet at the end of the game, shooting it from about 33 feet?
He was doing that the entire game.
I mean, hey, you know what?
I haven't even heard of that guy until I had to text him to figure out where he came from.
Wichita State.
Okay.
I was
also Rockford native, Illinois zone.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. And I think I go by Rockford every now and then.
I thought he got drafted by Milwaukee, so that's just where I'm at with him.
I need to not get drafted by Milwaukee, but let me get back to Victor Oladipo. I actually thought he played pretty solid there in the second half. I think he did start like 1 of 6 or 1 of 7. That was
ice cold.
That was rough. But a guy that is your favorite player, I can't believe you didn't bring him up, was Bogdanovich. 7 of 13, 18 points, 5 rebounds.
3-point percentage right now.
Absolutely.
He's back on top.
He shot 50% from 3, made 3 of them. I mean, over 50% from the floor.
And he did get fouled on that 3 on the left at the buzzer. He did get fouled on that.
I'll be the first one to tell you that he did. But just this overall game, I'm very impressed with this team, and it just goes to show you the depth that I continue to bring up every time we talk about the Raptors. They step up.
Yep.
If it, like I said, we're missing our starting point guard, missing our 6th man in Jonas Valanciunas. You had guys step up. A big guy that stepped up for me was OG Anunoby off the bench from Indiana. Drafted him a couple years ago, I think 23rd overall. Played 20 minutes last night. He hit both of his 3-pointers. Finished with 6 points, 2 rebounds, an assist, a steal, a block. I mean, he was really a big impact player off the bench. And shout out to Greg Monroe for really stepping up too. 6 of 9, 13 points, 8 rebounds. Way to step in because he doesn't get a lot of playing time with JV and Ibaka out there. Mm-hmm. And Nick Nurse asked him, he's like, "Hey, Moose, we need you to go in," and he did his job. And you know what? I'm so proud of this team, and I think this is a year we finally put it together and might even be able to make it to the finals.
I'm glad you brought up the bench, though. That game with Toronto and Indianapolis was a great bench game. Like, honestly, both sides have a phenomenal bench if you look at it with your guys, Toronto's bench, and then Indiana having Corey Joseph coming off, as well as Tyreek, who needs to he just needs to see the ball go in. Doug McBuckets. I still feel like Aaron Holiday needs to come off and play a little more because that dude brings another spark to the game. I don't know, man. It was just a good game overall. I agree with you 100%. They play each other again, don't they, coming up?
Oh, yeah, on the 23rd. And I will be attending that game, which will be fantastic because I went to the one last year, so I'm looking forward to it.
The Bulls are bad, Jake. They're just trying to get a first-round pick here for Zion at this point. I've been saying that all season. I don't know if you got any takes on the Bulls or not. Lowry's a stud. Wendell Carter, he's not playing very much for some reason I've noticed. I don't know why. Zach LaVine, Gavin's big on Zach LaVine. They need to keep building around him.
A couple things on the Bulls. Just Boylan, good grief. Is he a football coach or is he a basketball coach?
Yeah.
How can you have a leadership council of 4 or 5 guys when there's 12 guys on the roster that are healthy? That doesn't even make sense. You got one guy, you got to tell him the news. It's just like it's half the team. And then second off, on maybe a lighter note, is Zach Lowe had a good article the other day talking about between Carter and Markkanen, how they've been running a lot of games, a little high-low stuff, and it was some good take on that. I'd recommend it. But basically, it was just saying that we have a good skeleton for a legitimate front court in the modern NBA. But as long as you got Boylan, we're just going to keep playing in mud and grinding it out and losing by 20. So, until you get the right guy with the right mindset in there, coaching and front office, too, because fire guard packs, good God.
We've been talking about that all year.
If you can get the right guys at the top, you got the right pieces to play as a legitimate basketball team, which they're not currently doing.
I mean, that's the thing is, if Derrick Rose didn't fall into their lap in 2010, I mean, you're in the same situation you are now for the last 15 years. I mean, it's been despicable,
That's
honestly.
depressing.
It really is. Well, here's the thing. I used to be a Bulls fan when they had Derrick Rose. I used to be a Bulls fan, and listen, when they finally decide to fire both of them, or in fact just fire the whole front office, I might come back. But until then, I gotta roll with the Raptors. It's just despicable what they're doing in that front office in Chicago.
Tyson and I talk about this all the time. As soon as they get rid of that front office, I'm back on the train.
Absolutely.
I just cannot stand that front office right now. And they've had them guys there for, what, 10, 12 years now? 15 years, I think it might have been.
Yeah. Paxson might never have to leave, though. He signed a blood contract.
It's absolutely nuts, the contract that he has.
Yeah. Let's say after Michael Jordan left in '99, I think he's been there ever since.
Yeah.
So past 18, 19 years, he won't leave.
But let's move on. I've been saving this for last. I've been sandbagging it because this is my favorite game when it comes to college sports all season, and that is the bragging rights game between the University of Illinois and the who cares? Yeah, I hate Missouri. God, I hate Missouri. But this is a big game for us. We have a potential to improve our record to 5-7 going into well, not quite conference play yet. We're almost there. We're almost to conference play. But if we can win against Missouri in St. Louis tomorrow night, improve to 5-7. We got Florida Atlantic at home on the 29th, and we can potentially go into Big Ten play at 6-7.
Yeah.
Which would be huge.
A lot better situation than we were at when we started.
And you got to point out, 8th toughest schedule in the nation Illinois has been playing. With all this travel added to that.
10,000 miles in less than 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's absurd. And these guys are playing on fumes pretty much, and you get the holidays and things should, even out a bit. But you got to look at Missouri they're not the bad team they were last year. They just beat Xavier by 15. We lost to Xavier by 9, so this line's going to look kind of weird. If you're an Illinois fan and wondering why is Mizzou getting so many points? They haven't proved anything. Well, neither are we. But I really am confident going in the game. I don't know about you guys, but
I am too because we've won the last 7. So six.
Yeah.
We've won the last 6. I'm real confident about this game. We play Missouri well. We always do.
Well, I'm real confident about it just in the fact of Trent Frazier. He always seems to show up in big games.
How about him dropping 25 the other night? He had 6 threes in the first half.
Well, there's that, and there's also the fact that he's averaging 15.5 points a game compared to their best player, and Jordan Geist, I think is how you say his name.
Yeah.
Not even averaging 13. So you got a team that doesn't have a single player on the roster that can't average 13 points a game at the collegiate level. That's a big head scratcher to me. How this team is 7-3, I'd like to see their schedule. I haven't looked at it yet.
Ain't near as tough as ours.
Look, the spread. There is no spread, but they got a 56% chance to win this game.
How?
I disagree.
This should be split.
I'm looking at 1 for Illinois. Illinois -1 is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it should be flipped right now. If anything, Illinois should have 56% chance to win this game.
Yeah.
If not more. Other than that, I mean,
this game's going to boil down to me about what Kipper shows up. Jake highlighted this when he was talking about the football program with Ricky Smalling. What Kipper shows up depends on how well this team plays. If you look at him on Saturday when they played East Tennessee State, the right Kipper showed up, and then everybody was feeding off of that. Trent was feeding off of it. DeMonte, Aaron Jordan, everybody was feeding off of Kipper's energy. Samba Kane came in. He had a couple sweet, smooth blocks on the defensive end. Defensive glass, and then he had a lot of offensive boards too, which kept the ball alive. What Kipper shows up depends on how well this team plays. I understand, you got Io, you've got Griff, who didn't play on Saturday because they were late to the shoot-around Saturday morning. But how Kipper, I feel like, is a big factor to this team, as well as Trent with the leadership. Obviously, it's Trent's team, and it's going to be for a while. But the leadership, or how Kipper plays on both ends of the ball, determines how well this Illini team is going to play. I mean, I don't know, Jake, is there any validity to that?
If you got a good Kipper, you always got a chance to win. I'm really looking at, right now, Georgie versus Tillman. Tillman, a guy who we talked about. Tillman, a guy who decommitted with Underwood coming. We got Georgie, who, he's my favorite player on the team right now. Guy with that type of energy. From what I hear, every time down the court, referees tell him to stop doing something or another, whether he's jawing or elbowing or just whatever it takes. And he seems like an Illinois legend to me already, whether good or bad. But Georgie seems to be like a guy that he's just going to feed off of just the hate that the fans have for Mizzou. A guy that's going to look at some of these players. Mark Smith is another one. Pickett, guys who were supposed to be Illini, and kind of give them a little taste of what it means to be a true Illini. I'm pretty confident, but I just like what Georgie brings, man. And, we talk about all the other guys, and good Kipper especially. But, gosh, if Georgie can stay out of foul trouble, I like our chances.
I just got something real quick from Bleacher Report. I guess you'd call this breaking news. Le'Veon Bell says that he has his eye on the Colts and plans to
He has been.
heavily consider signing with the Colts because of Andrew Luck's offense. So, I mean, not that we didn't see that coming. It was between the Colts and the Jets, ultimately. Why he would want to go to the New York Jets is beyond me with that dumpster fire they have there.
I like Darnold, though.
Darnold's the only bright spot they have there.
Yeah.
That's it. Now, they could have a nice 1-2 punch there. I think that would open up the field for Darnold a little bit more. But, I mean, he's got some development. Youngest starting quarterback ever. So, but anyway, getting back to this game, Aaron Jordan, I think, is a guy that I want to keep my eyes on in this one.
Fleas is mine.
Absolutely.
Y'all got picks in Georgie Feliz and Aaron Jordan.
What concerns me is, are we going to get Aaron Jordan that takes 13 shots and only makes 2 of them, or are we going to get Aaron Jordan that takes 6 or 7 shots and makes 4 or 5 of them? He's had 10 plus rebounds in I think 4 of the 11 games that we played this season, and that's really impressive, especially with him only being like 6'6". I mean, that's awesome to see. My big concern is Dosunmu. Is he going to shoot 1 for 9, 1 for 11, 2 for 10? I mean, we brought him here to be a facilitator. Not that, I don't like him taking shots because we know he can shoot, but, when you got Trent Frazier out there, when you got Georgie B that can knock down threes, I mean, just be the floor general that we brought you here to be. If you're hot, you're hot, but the last few games, I mean, he's shooting less than 30% from the floor, and that's awful. It's not that I don't like him. I mean, the stats don't lie. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. That's the thing is he's struggling right now, and I get that 100%. But when it comes to Io, there's so much that he does when he doesn't have the ball. It's with how he cuts, with how he's defending, with how there's so much that you see that the stats don't show. And as a basketball guy, you know that.
Absolutely. Which is why I said I don't have a problem with him being out there.
If his offensive game is off, which, right, I understand, he still gets 9-10 points a game. Because he's going to pound that rim until he's going to get somebody to foul. He's going to step to the line. He's just going to keep pounding the basket until the ball goes in. Whether he's shooting from the outside, he's on or he's off, that's a different subject. But what he does when he doesn't have the ball on the offensive side, and then not only that, the defensive side, is where Illinois stays alive. Because he can guard, their best three spot. It doesn't matter who it is. Io can do a lot of things away from the ball.
Yes, which is why I want him on the floor.
I do too.
But I don't want him taking 11, 12 shots a game if he's only going to make a couple.
Right, and I get that 100%. I'm right there with you. Io still has a lot of aspects of his game that he has to develop. I understand that. But everything is there for Io.
Absolutely.
It's there. They've just got to hone it in. Jake, I don't know what you think about that, but Io's talent level is there. It's just they have to work on it. He has to step up because everything is already there for Io.
Well, shoot, we got to worry about if Io even plays. I mean,
yeah.
if he shows up to shoot around, good grief. But no,
him and Griff both.
I think it's a really good look at if you can get an Io versus Mark Smith and kind of see who goes toe-to-toe and wins it.
I hope Mark Smith doesn't score a single point.
No, which Illinois Mr. Basketball is better.
Yeah.
Io's just a dog, and I think he could take this one personal. Plus, like I said, having to sit out the last game, being able to shoot around, he's got a little chip on his shoulder right now. And if he can show Mark Smith what it means to be an Illinois point guard that comes in with hype and shows what it's about, and like you said, not go 2 for 13 and have an efficient game, making a lot of layups, making a lot of good passes. Cale, we went and watched him almost put up a triple-double.
Yeah, he was a rebound off
the other day. And, I mean, he has that potential to come in every game with it. And I think that there's no better stage for a guy that is through and through Illini. Everything you hear, his family is on Twitter talking about it. He's on Twitter talking about it. He's always been Illinois heavy. And to say this is what a bragging right game is all about, I think that could just be like, could put you right where you need to be in terms of Underwood's opinion of you, and then also as a fan favorite. I think Io can do that.
And I'm glad that you said that it comes down to that, because this is the game I believe can change the entire season. I mean, this is it. Before Big Ten play, this is it.
Yeah, because you know who we have first for Big Ten play? Your school.
Oh, it's Indy? I don't know why I thought it was Nebraska for some reason.
That game's making, because I watched Indy blow that team out they played last night. I don't even know who it was, but wow, they're phenomenal. Romeo Langford. I've been talking about him all year. And Romeo Langford's a stud.
Well, and I said that
will be a good matchup too, Io and Langford.
Yes, and I said that before the season even started, before the ATP polls even came out. I was saying Indiana, Romeo Langford, just watch out for this team, because I think he was a top 5 prospect coming into it. I would say that he might even. Okay, I'll just leave it at top 5. I'm a little biased. I said he might even be top 3, but that's a little
He's
biased.
potential to make a Big Ten Player of the Year though. If Brozdakis from Michigan doesn't get it.
Yeah, well, I think this is a guy that when the NBA draft rolls around, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes in the top 5, top 6. I mean, this is a game changer. He's a game changer. Just please make it free throws, man. 60% from the line. That's ridiculous. Please make it free throws.
I'm just excited for him.
That's my only complaint.
We can win tomorrow and we can beat Florida Atlantic. We got to play Indiana. We're coming in at 6-7. I'm more confident than we're going to have a 2-game win streak against Missouri, who honestly I love when we can beat Missouri in anything. I don't know. It's just going to boost Illinois' confidence playing against a phenomenal Indiana team.
Absolutely. Hey, as long as they keep it close, I mean, that's all I care about. Obviously, I mean, I got to root for my school, but any other time, I will be an Illinois fan. Anything else to add?
Nope.
I think that's it.
We've been talking here for a long time. So
Yeah, I think over an hour. Over an hour. Wow.
I got a little teaser before I get off.
Sure.
Guys. There's been some Thad Ward and some other recruiting coaches, a little Twitter fingers going on, little Liddyville type situation. And I'm hearing good things on the transfer front is what that's the source of. It could be some Jeff Thomas and some Luke Ford stuff. So definitely keep your eyes on that on Twitter. Follow the right people, and keep your eye on that. That's my closing statement.
Real quick, this is more breaking news, man. We just can't wrap it off. LA got rid of Puig to make room for Bryce Harper. They're going to offer him a max deal. That is breaking news. Cale, your thoughts? Cale, your thoughts?
Oh, okay. So I didn't want to admit that. I kind of figured that was going on because honestly, who do you keep? Yasiel Puig or Bryce Harper? Give him a max contract.
Right.
No, duh. There's not even a question, honestly.
Is that roster enough to entice Bryce Harper to sign that contract?
No, I don't think it is, though. They got the pieces. Cody Bellinger's coming back. He had a Tommy John surgery as a shortstop, which I've never heard of that in my entire life, honestly. But, no, Cody Bellinger, Turner, it's Corey. I just said Cody Bellinger. I meant Corey Seager. Cody Bellinger is a center field first baseman. The talent is there for the Dodgers. Trading Puig, though, is not a good look because Puig is one of the better bats they have. So they're losing a lot of run production in Yasiel Puig because that dude can hit the ball 500 miles. I mean, honestly, he can hit it to the moon and back. I don't know. The money's there for Harper. I told you this, and I told Tyson this a couple weeks ago. Harper needs to avoid the max contract for this deal. Sign a 3-year deal right now for whatever money. Get his hardware, and then he'll be 29 when max. He'll be 29 when that deal's up because he's 26 right now. Sign your max deal when you're 29. Get your money. So you have your money, you have your paycheck, and then you have your hardware. Honestly, that's what I see Bryce Harper doing. So that's why I'm still leaning on the fact that he could sign with the White Sox for the sheer fact that the talent level in his 3rd year for the White Sox would be there. They would be a contender, for a World Series trophy.
But that's the thing is, does he want to play for a contender right now? Does he want to wait 2 years in order to be able to get that ring?
The stigma right now around LA is they get there, but they can't close it out because we got playoff Clayton Kershaw.
That's the thing.
You know
but
how I feel about playoff.
I know you
Kershaw.
do, as do a lot of people. But would Bryce Harper be enough
by himself? This year he only batted .230. That's way under what he normally bats.
Well, I think the whole Nationals team was a big disappointment this year.
Yes,
though.
and there was a lot of Bryce Harper. They had a lot of pressure on him because
injuries as well.
Yes, and all that. I get that. Would Bryce Harper be enough with that roster they have now? Offensively, yes. Defensively, they don't have any pitching, so they're going to have to score 4 to 5 runs per game in order to keep themselves in it. And that's going to be hard coming around playing the National League Central, playing the East. There's a lot of good teams in the National League. Overall, I honestly feel like the National League is better than the American. I've always felt that way. I just don't think that the pitching staff is there in order to keep the Dodgers relevant in all seriousness. I really don't. That's why I don't think he's going to go there. I feel like the Dodgers just unloaded their team for nothing. Now, they do have the money. They do have the salary cap space to sign him, and who wouldn't want to live in L.A., honestly?
Well, we know that Magic Johnson has a stake in the team. We know that he went out and got LeBron James. Would he maybe have his hand in the Bryce Harper sweepstakes at this point? Okay.
I know he's got a stake in the Dodgers as well, absolutely. Who's to say Magic Johnson, one of the best basketball players to ever play, could be one of the best GMs ever because you never know.
You sign LeBron James, your name's obviously got to be in the mix.
Bryce Harper's
right
the biggest name in free agency this season.
Right.
What did Magic do last year? Got the biggest name in free agency in LeBron. So LeBron or Magic's out there getting guys left and right. So I could see Harper going going to L.A., but I just don't feel like he will because I don't think the World Series chances are there for L.A. I really don't. I feel like the Cubs have a better opportunity with the pitching staff because we're going to get Darvish back. Cole Hamels, we picked up his option. So I just don't see Bryce Harper going to L.A. I really don't.
Unbiased. Okay.
Seriously. I don't think he's coming to the Cubs either. I don't think Theo can afford to get Bryce Harper right now because they would have to unload the entire team.
Okay.
I don't want to see Theo unload the team just to get Harper. I really don't because I love this Cubs team. We're still a 95-win team. So think about that. We haven't been a 95-win team in how many years? Just think about it.
Well, since this all started, yeah, it was dumpster fire.
So I don't know. Bryce Harper ends up with the Dodgers. I'm going to be pretty pissed off. I'm just going to put it that way. Just for the sheer fact that's another headache the Cubs got to worry about. I hate the Dodgers, man.
How about
I would rather than go to the White Sox, seriously.
Yeah, no, but see, I would too.
Of all teams, I would rather see him in Philly than LA.
Right, but see, I would too. And this is something that me and Jake talked about off air is where Bryce Harper was going to go before we even got into that. So does this throw a monkey wrench into things for you, and how does this change your outlook on this?
Dude, I couldn't tell you where these guys are going. I look at Machado going to Philly and having construction workers tell him to go get that money. I don't know. It's
and the
wild.
White Sox are the ones that have it.
Yeah, well, absolutely correct. It all makes sense with the Dodgers, with clearing out this cap space, clearing out the outfield position too. God, dude, I tell you what, like I said, I want to be a homer. I want to think he's going to Cubs. I'm with you, Cale. I just don't think it's in the cards. I think that there's a lot of good moves to be made. We talked about earlier, Cale and I off air about Daniel Murphy going to Colorado, and that's somebody you gave up pieces to get. And
good for Daniel Murphy though. That was a good signing. That was a good signing on the Rockies' part.
The only thing I'm going to say on that, Daniel Murphy's starting to get real old.
Yeah, he hits dingers, man. He hits dingers.
That's all it's about, dingers, Cale.
Nobody would be talking about Daniel Murphy unless it wasn't for 2015 when he played the Cubs in the DS, excuse me. I'm just going to leave that there. That's the last thing I'm going to say about that.
It is fair, but I mean, you still got to like the guy for what he was able to do. I thought he did a pretty solid job with his tenure in Chicago. I thought he did.
He did. Theo. Daniel Murphy did exactly what Theo brought him in there to do, and that was to play second base and then hit. And he did exactly that. You can't complain about what he did in Chicago.
No.
All right, so the Bryce Harper sweepstakes continue.
I'm just
Machado.
Just sign, man. Seriously, go somewhere. Whether it's Philly, I could see him going to Philly too. I could talk about this for a second because I could see him going to Philly because I feel like Mike Trout's going to end up there in the next 2 years too.
And that is something that we agree on.
Yeah, Mike Trout's. I assume Philadelphia, big Philly guy, always has been. Well, if you're from there, like we're big Chicago guys because Chicago is where all our sports teams are. So Mike Trout going to Philly I could seriously see that swaying Bryce Harper because who would think about that outfield? Mike Trout, Bryce Harper. Best outfield I think a baseball team would ever put together. Because Mike Trout's honestly the best player since Babe Ruth. That's how I feel. He's the LeBron of the MLB.
See, that's the thing is I don't know enough about baseball and its history to understand the impact that he's had on the game. I just know, and me personally, he's the best player in baseball right now. I don't know how to compare him.
He's the LeBron of the MLB.
Okay.
Mike Trout is the LeBron of the MLB. And he is on a terrible franchise because of that Albert
Pujols contract.
10 years, $700,000 million. Yeah, that's a number. That was absurd for the Angels to give him that.
Yeah. Well, and what that was 7 years ago when he signed it. We knew
3 years.
We knew that. We knew that when he signed it, and we were teenagers. We knew it was a bad contract. I mean, it's not hard to figure out.
The Angels thought they were going to have St. Louis Albert Pujols, who nobody knows how old that guy is. You know, he's never disclosed his birth date. I don't think he's probably 70. But no, that Pujols contract in L.A. hosed Mike Trout because he couldn't be on a World Series roster. Think about that. They don't have the Pujols contract. They have Mike Trout on a rookie deal for the first 2 years. That's going to do nothing but give L.A., the Angels, the salary cap room to do something with Mike Trout, and they with the addition of Shohei Ohtani. You know, so that being said, I don't know. It's just the hot stove. Something needs to happen with Harper and Machado.
Let's get it over with.
I'm tired of waiting, man.
Just rip the Band-Aid off, right?
Although I do love it. I mean, honestly, you got to love it.
Well, one last thing. We do know Machado is going to come out with his signing the first week of January, whenever that is, whether it's first, second, third. We don't know when.
I'm telling you, it's going to be Philadelphia, or it's going to be Chicago, and it's not going to be the Cubs.
All right. And, well, we'll see if you're right. Jake, I want to thank you again for coming on the show for however many times this has been. It's always a pleasure.
Filling in for Tyson today.
Yeah, absolutely. Tyson.
Let's stop counting, guys. Let's just keep going.
Just keep going. Yeah, we love it. Cale, good job today, man. You didn't have your co-host other than me. and we all know that I'm just here to talk. So good job keeping things in order.
Have fun in Dallas, Tyson.
Yeah, I'm glad. Did you make it there safe, man?
Yeah.
I never messaged us back.
They landed.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, should be a good game. Who are the Cowboys playing this week?
Tampa Bay.
Oh man, that should be
He's going to a good one.
That should be a murder, I hope. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for us here. If you like what you heard, make sure to hit that big red subscribe button down below. Hit the bell icon next to it so you guys never miss a beat. Also, leave us, comments, ratings, subscribe, all that stuff, whatever. Follow us on Twitter too.
Shout out Clyde too.
And Clyde, man, thank you for listening to all these videos
since we started this.
Yeah, if you're still around, I know I saw your comment there from I think a week ago.
You're the reason why all this started.
Absolutely. Man, dude, we got to bring Clyde on sometime.
Yeah, we do.
Clyde, you're coming on the show, man.
Clyde, I know you listen to every episode.
You're coming on the show if you made it to this point. But also
comments so we know you listen to it.
Yeah. And follow us on Twitter at @sports_twin. Cale's on top of that. But with that said, that was Cale Fleming, Jake Stevens, and my name is Gavin Campbell. We will see you guys next time.
Peace.